Bandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yatha Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivashakam Vitam Scha Om Jnana Timarandasha Jnanachana Shalakaya Chakshuramilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Gurva Bhishtam Supurakam Garganara Sesha Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Veninipanam Shri Rupa Patanugam Govinda Vidam Ujvalam Varatanum Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Bande Vishwa Gurun Shah Divyat Bhagavat Prem Navi Bijapradam Devam Divyatanum Suchandabaranam Balarka Shelan Sandrananda Puram Sadeka Varanam Vairagya Vidyamburim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Bandetam Shubharam Madeka Sharanam Nyashishvara Sridharam Vancha Kopatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavenibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaurachabhishe Namah. So we're hearing from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. This is Madhya-lila chapter 6, the liberation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. I'll begin with verse number 140. Sarvaishvarya paripurna swayam bhagavan tare nirakara kore kuraha vyakyan. Actually, the Supreme Absolute Truth is a person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full with all opulences. You are trying to explain him as impersonal and formless. Mahaprabhu addressing Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Nirvisheshtare kohe jai shruti gan prakrita nishedi kore aprakrita stapan. Whenever there is an impersonal description in the Vedas mean to establish that everything belonging to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental and free of mundane characteristics. So impersonal in the sense that it is not mundane personality and mundane qualities. Yaya Shrutir Jaupati Nirvishesham Sa Sabhidhate Sa Visheshameva Vichara Yoge Satihantatasam Prayo Baliya Sa Visheshameva. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, whatever Vedic mantras describe the Absolute Truth impersonally only prove in the end that the Absolute Truth is a person. The Supreme Lord is understood in two features, impersonal and personal. If one considers the Lord in both features, he can actually understand the Absolute Truth. He knows that the personal understanding is stronger because we see that everything is full of variety. No one can see anything that is not full of variety. Brahma hoite janmi vishva brahmeti Jivai se brahme punarape hoye jaya loy. Everything in the cosmic manifestation emanates from the Absolute Truth, remains in the Absolute Truth, and after annihilation again enters the Absolute Truth. Apadana karana adikarana kara karakatin Magavaner Savisheshe 18 Shina. The personal features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are categorized in three cases, namely ablative, instrumental, and locative. Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur states in his Amrita Pravaha Bhasha that according to the injunction of the Upanishads, the Supreme Absolute Truth is He from whom everything emanates. It is understood that the whole cosmic manifestation emanated from Brahman, the Supreme Absolute Truth. The creation subsists by the energy of the Supreme Brahman and after annihilation merges into the Supreme Brahman. From this we can understand that the Absolute Truth can be categorized in three cases: ablative, instrumental, and locative. According to these three cases, the Absolute Truth is positively personified. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati quotes the Aitareya Upanishad, Atma va idam eka evagra asin nanyad kinchana mishat sa ikshata lokam sa srijayati. Similarly, the Svettasvatara Upanishad, in the Svettasvatara Upanishad it is said, Chandamsi yagya kratavo vratani bhutam bhaviyam yatscha veda vadanti yasman mayi srijate vishvametat tasmin chanyo mayaya saniruda. And in the Taittiriya Upanishad, Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanti vishanti tad vigya sasva tad brahma. This was the answer given by Father Varuna when questioned by his son Varuni Brigu about the Absolute Truth in the mantra, the word yata, the Absolute Truth from whom the cosmic manifestation has emanated, is in the ablative case. The Brahman by which this universal creation is maintained is in the instrumental case, yena, and that Brahman into which the whole cosmic manifestation merges is in the locative case, yat or yasmin. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Idam I Vishvam Bhagavan Ivetaro Yato Jagatstana Nirodha Sambhavaha. The entire universal creation is contained in the gigantic form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything emanates from Him, everything rests in His energy, and after annihilation, everything merges into His person. Bhagavan Bahu Hoite Jabe Koilaman Prakrita Shakti Te Tabe Koila Vilokan Sekali Nahi Janme Prakrita Manonayan Ateva Prakrita Brahmera Netraman. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead wished to become many, He glanced over the material energy. Before the creation, there were no mundane eyes or mind. Therefore, the transcendental nature of the Absolute Truth's mind and eyes is confirmed. Brahma Shabde Kohe Purna Swayam Bhagavan Krishna Shastrara Brahman. The word Brahman indicates the complete Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Sri Krishna. That is the verdict of all Vedic literature. Vedaran Niguda Arta Bhujana Nahoy Purana Bhakya Se Arta Koraya Nisjoy. The confidential meaning of the Vedas is not easily understood by common men. Therefore, that meaning is supplanted by the words of the Puranas. The confidential meaning of the Vedas is not easily understood by common men. Therefore, that meaning is supplemented by the words of the Puranas. Aho bhagyam Nandagopa Vrajokasam Yanmitram Paramanandam Purnam Brahma Sanatanam. How greatly fortunate are Nanda Maharaj, the cowherd men, and all the inhabitants of Brajabhumi. There is no limit to their fortune because the absolute truth, the source of transcendental bliss, the eternal Supreme Brahman, has become their friend. Apani Parashruti Barje Prakrita Pani Charan Punakohe Shigrachali Kore Sarvagrahan. The Vedic Apanipada mantra rejects material hands and legs, yet it states that the Lord goes very fast and accepts everything offered to him. Ateva Shruti Kohe Brahma Savishesh Mukyachari Lakanate Manini Vishesh. All these mantras confirm that the absolute truth is personal, but the Mayavadis, throwing away the direct meaning, interpret the absolute truth as impersonal. Shad Aishvarya Purnananda Vigraha Jahar Hena Bhagavane Tumi Kaha Nirakar. Are you describing as formless, that Supreme Personality of Godhead whose transcendental form is complete with 6 transcendental opulences? Sabhavika Tin Shakti Jai Brahme Hoy Nishatika Kore Tare Koraha Nishoy. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has 3 primary potencies. Are you trying to prove that he has no potencies? Vishnu Shakti Paraprokta Kshetra Yakya Tata Para Avidya Karma Samjanya Tritiya Shaktir Ishyate. The internal potency of the Supreme Lord Vishnu is spiritual, as verified by the Shastras. There is another spiritual potency known as Kshetragya, or the living entity. The third potency, which is known as nescience, makes the living entity godless and fills him with fluid of activity. Yaya Kshetragya Shakti Sa Veshtita Nripa Sarvaga Samsara Tapan Akilan Avapnoti Yatra Santatan. O King, the Kshetragya Shakti is the living entity. Although he has the facility to live in either the material or the spiritual world, he suffers the threefold miseries of material existence because he is influenced by the avidya, nescience potency, which covers his constitutional position. Tayad tirohi tatvatscha shakti kshetragya samgita sarvabhuteshu bhubhala taratam yena vartate. The living entity, covered by the influence of nescience, exists in different forms in the material condition. O King, he is thus proportionately freed from the influence of material energy to a greater or lesser degree. This living entity, covered by the influence of nescience, exists in different forms in the material condition. O King, he is thus proportionately freed from the influence of material energy to a greater or lesser degree. Ladini Sandini Samvit Tvayika Sarva Samshraye Lada Tapa Kori Mishra Tvayina Gunavarjite. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Satchidananda Vigraha. This means that he originally has 3 potencies: the pleasure potency, the potency of eternality, and the potency of knowledge. Together these are called the Chit potency, and they are present in full in the Supreme Lord. For the living entities who are part and parcel of the Lord, the pleasure potency in the material world is sometimes displeasing and sometimes mixed. This is not the case with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he is not under the influence of the material energy or its modes. Satchidanandamoya hoy Ishvara Swarup, Teen Amshe Chid Shakti hoy Tina Rup. The Supreme Personality of Godhead in his original form is full of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. A spiritual potency in these three portions, Satchid and Ananda, assumes three different forms. Anamdamshe Ladini, Sadamshe Sandini, Chidamshi Samvit Jarigyana Korimani. The three portions of the spiritual potency are called Ladini, the bliss portion, Sadini, the eternity portion, and Samvit, the knowledge portion. We accept knowledge of these as full knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Antaranga Chid Shakti Tatasta Jiva Shakti Bahiranga Maya Tine Kore Prima Bhakti. The spiritual potency of the Supreme Lord also appears in three phases: internal, marginal, and eternal. No, the supreme potency of the spiritual potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead also appears in three phases: internal, marginal, and external. These are all engaged in his devotional service and love. Shadvida Aishvarya Prabhor Chid Shakti Vilas Hena Shakti Nahiman Parama Sahas. In his spiritual potency, the Supreme Lord enjoys 6 kinds of opulences. You do not accept this spiritual potency, and this is due to your great impudence. Maya Disha Maya Vas Vasha Ishvara Jive Ved Hena Jive Ishvara Saha Kahata Abed. The Lord is the master of the potencies, and the living entity is the servant of them. That is the difference between the Lord and the living entity. However, you declare that the Lord and the living entities are one and the same. The Lord is the master of the potencies, and the living entity is the servant of them. That is the difference between the Lord and the living entity. However, you declare that the Lord and the living entities are one and the same. Gita Shastra Jiva Rupa Shakti Korimane Hena Jive Bed Kora Ishvarera Shane. In the Bhagavad Gita, the living entity is established as a marginal potency of the Supreme Lord. Yet you say that the living entity is completely different from the Lord. Bhumer Apo Nalo Vayu Kammano Buddha Evacha Ahankara Iti Yamme Bina Prakritir Ashtada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego are my 8-fold separated energies. Aparayam itastvanyam prakritim vidime param jivabhutam mahabaho yayedam daryate jagat. Besides these inferior energies, which are material, there is another energy, a spiritual energy, and this is the living being, Almighty Arm One. Besides these inferior energies, which are material, there is another energy, a spiritual energy, and this is the living being, Almighty Arm One. The entire material world is sustained by the living entities. Ishvarer Shri Vigraha Satchidanandakar Se Vigrahe Kaha Sattva Gunera Bikar. The transcendental form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is complete in eternity, cognizance, and bliss. However, you describe this transcendental form as a product of material goodness. Se vigraha yena mane se tapashandi adrishya sprishya se hoy Yamadandi. One who does not accept the transcendental form of the Lord is certainly an agnostic. Such a person should be neither seen nor touched. Indeed, it is subject to be punished by Yamaraj. Vedana maniya bodha hoita nastik Veda shrai nastikya vada bodhake adhika. The Buddhists do not recognize the authority of the Vedas. Therefore, they are considered agnostics. However, those who have taken shelter of the Vedic scriptures yet preach agnosticism in accordance with the Mayavad philosophy are certainly more dangerous than the Buddhist. Jivara nishtara lage sutra koila vyas mayavadi bhashya as shunile hoy sarvanash. Srila Vyasadeva presented the Vedanta philosophy for the deliverance of conditioned souls. But if one hears the commentary of Shankaracharya, everything is spoiled. Parinamavad Vyasa Sutra Samata Achintya Shakti Ishvara Jagad Rupe Parinata. The Vedanta Sutra aims at establishing that the cosmic manifestation has come into being by the transformation of the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Manijaichi avikrite prasabe henabar jagadrupa hoy ishvara tabu avikar. The touchstone, after touching iron, produces volumes of gold without being changed. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests himself as a cosmic manifestation by his inconceivable potency, yet he remains unchanged in his eternal transcendental form. Vyasabranta Boli Se Sutre Doshadiya Vivartavad Stapiyache Kalpana Koriya. Shankaracharya's theory states that the absolute truth is transformed. By accepting this theory, the Mayavadi philosophers denigrate Srila Vyasadeva by accusing him of error. Thus, they find fault in the Vedanta Sutra and interpret it to try to establish the theory of illusion. Shivera dehi atma buddhi se mitya hoy jagat je mitya nahi nashvara matra hoy. The theory of illusion can be applied only when the living entity identifies himself with the body. As far as the cosmic manifestation is concerned, it cannot be called false, although it is certainly temporary. Pranavaye Mahabhakya Ishvarer Murti Pranava Hoite Sarvaveda Jagat Utpati. The transcendental vibration, Omkara, is the sound form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All Vedic knowledge and this cosmic manifestation are produced from this sound representation of the Supreme Lord. Tattvamasi jiva hetu pradisheka vakya pranava namanitare kohe mahavakya. The subsidiary vibration, Tattvamasi, you are the same, is meant for the understanding of the living entity, but the principal vibration is Omkara. Not caring for Omkara, Shankaracharya has stressed the vibration, Tattvamasi. So Tattvamasi is only half of the truth. So you can't establish something with just half of the truth. That half of the truth as Tattvamasi means you are the same, means we are simultaneously one with God, but the other half is but different from God. So the living entity is simultaneously one with the Lord, in the sense that the living entity is Satchidananda Vigraha, like the Lord, but to a lesser degree, and that's where the difference comes in. The Lord is infinite, and the living entities are infinitesimal, but they have in an infinitesimal degree the same qualities as the Lord of being eternal, cognizant, and full of happiness. Emate kalpita bashe shatadosha dila Bhattacharya purnapaka apara korila. Thus Chaitanya Mahaprabhu criticized Shankaracharya's Sharirak Bhashya as imaginary, and he pointed out hundreds of faults in it. To defend Shankaracharya, however, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya presented unlimited opposition. Vitanda chala nigrahade aneka utaila sabkhande prabhu nija mata se stapila. The Bhattacharya presented various types of false arguments with pseudo-logic and tried to defeat his opponent in many ways. However, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refuted all these arguments and established his own conviction. Bhagavan Sambandha Bhakti Avideya Hoy Prema Prayojana Vede Tina Vastu Hoy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the central point of all relationships. Acting in devotional service to Him is one's real occupation, and the attainment of love of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. These three subject matters are described in the Vedic literatures. Arajeje Kichukohe Sakala I Kalpana Svata Pramana Veda Vakye Kalpana Lakan. If one tries to explain the Vedic literature in a different way, he is indulging in imagination. If one tries to explain Vedic literature in a different way, he is indulging in imagination. Any interpretation of the self-evident Vedic version is simply imaginary. Acharya doshanahi Ishvara agya hoila ateva kalpana kori nastika shastra koila. Actually, there is no fault on the part of Shankaracharya. He simply carried out the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He had to imagine some kind of interpretation, and therefore he presented a kind of Vedic literature that is full of atheism. Swagamai kalpitais tvam cha jananmad vimukan kuru mam cha gopaya yena shat shrishtir esho tarotara. Addressing Lord Shiva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, "Please make the general populace averse to me by imagining your own interpretation of the Vedas. Also, cover me in such a way that people will take more interest in advancing material civilization just to propagate a population bereft of spiritual knowledge." Addressing Lord Shiva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, "Please make the general populace averse to me by imagining your own interpretation of the Vedas. Also cover me in such a way that people will take more interest in advancing material civilization just to propagate a population bereft of spiritual knowledge." Mayavadam asatshastram prachanam bodham uchate mayaiva Vihitam Devi Kalo Brahmana Murtina. Lord Shiva informed Goddess Durga, the superintendent of the material world. In the age of Kali, I take the form of a Brahmin and explain the Vedas through false scriptures in an atheistic way, similar to Buddhist philosophy. Shuni Bhattacharya Hoila Parama Vishmita Mukena Nishare Vani Hoila Astambila. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became very much astonished upon hearing this. He became stunned and said nothing. Prabhu Kohe Bhattacharya Nakora Vishmoy Bhagavane Bhakti Parama Purnartha Hoy. Prabhu Kohe Bhattacharya Nakora Vishmoy Bhagavane Bhakti Parama Purushartha Hoy. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then told him, do not be astonished. Actually, devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the highest perfection of human activity. Atmarama Paryanta Kore Ishvara Bhajan Aije Achintya Bhagavaner Gunagan. Even the self-satisfied sage has performed devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Such are the transcendental qualities of the Lord. They are full of inconceivable spiritual potency. Atmaramas Chamunayo Nirgranta Apiyarukrame Korvanti Ahaitukim Bhaktim Itam Bhuta Gana Hari. Atmaramas Chamunayo Nirgranta Apiyarukrame Kurvanti Ahaitukim Bhaktim Itambuta Guno Hari. Those who are self-satisfied and unattracted by material, those who are self-satisfied and unattracted by external material desires are also attracted to the loving service of Sri Krishna, whose qualities are transcendental and whose activities are wonderful. Hari, the personality of Godhead, is called Krishna because he has such transcendentally attractive features. Shuni Bhattacharya Kohe Shuna Mahashai E Shlokarartha Shunite Manchahoy. After hearing the Atmarama verse, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya addressed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. My dear sir, please explain this verse. I have a great desire to hear your explanation of it. Prabhu Kohe Tumiki Arta Kora Taha Ageshuni Pache Ami Koriba Arta Jeva Kichu Jani Sarvabhauma. Pardon me. The Lord replied, first let me hear your explanation. After that I shall try to explain what little I know. Shuni Bhattacharya Shloka Korila Vyakyan Tarka Shastra Mata Ihaya Vivida Vidan. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then began to explain the Atmarama verse, and according to the principles of logic, he put forward various propositions. Navavida Arta Koila Shastra Mata Loya Shuni Prabhu Kohekichu Ishad Hashia. So, the Bhattacharya explained the Atmarama verse in 9 different ways on the basis of scripture. After hearing his explanation, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, smiling a little, began to speak. Bhattacharya Jani Tumi Sakat Brihaspati Shastra Vyakya Korite Aiche Karuna Hi Shakti. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, my dear Bhattacharya, you are exactly like Brihaspati, the priest of the heavenly kingdom. Indeed, no one within this world has the power to explain the scriptures in such a way. Kintu tumi arta koile panditya prativai iha bai shlokerache aro abhiprai. My dear Bhattacharya, you have certainly explained this verse by the prowess of your vast learning, but you should know that besides this scholarly explanation, there is another purport to this verse. Bhattacharya Prartanate Prabhu Vyaktya Koila Taranava Arta Madhye Eka Nachunila. Upon the request of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to explain the verse without touching upon the 9 explanations given by the Bhattacharya. Atmaramascha shloke ekadasha parahoi pritak pritak koila padera arta nischoy. There are 11 words in the Atmarama verse, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained each word one after the other. Tat tat para pradanye Atmarama milaya ashtadasha arta koila abhipraya loya. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took each word specifically and combined it with the word Atmarama. He thus explained the word Atmarama in 18 different ways. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took each word specifically and combined it with the word Atmarama. He thus explained the word Atmarama in 18 different ways. Bhagavan Tara Shakti Tara Gunagan Achintya Prabhava Tiner Najai Katan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his different potencies, and his transcendental qualities all have inconceivable prowess. It is not possible to explain them fully. Anyajata Sadhya Saran Kore Achadan E Tine Kore Siddha Sarakaraman. These 3 items attract the mind of a perfect student engaged in spiritual activities and overcome all other processes of spiritual activity. Sanakare Shukadeva Tahate Praman Se Mata Nan Se Mata Sanakare Shukadeva Tahate Praman Emata Nana Arta Korana Vyakyan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained the meaning of the verse by giving evidence concerning Sukadeva Goswami and the 4 rishis, Sanaka, Sanat Kumar, Sanatana, and Sanandan. Thus the Lord gave various meanings and explanations. Shuni Bhattacharya Mane Hoila Chamatkar Prabhuke Krishna Jane Kore Apanadikar. Upon hearing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's explanation of the Atmarama verse, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was struck with wonder. He then understood Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be Krishna in person, and he thus condemned himself in the following words. Ihota Sakat Krishna Muina Janiya Maha Aparara Koinu Garvita Hoya Ihota Sakat Krishna Muita Janiya Maha Aparara Koinu Garvita Hoya. Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is certainly Lord Krishna himself, because I could not understand him and was very proud of my own learning. I have committed many offenses. Atma Sindha, Kori Koila, Prabhura, Sharan, Kripa kori bare tabe Prabhura hoilaman Atmaninda kori loila Prabhura sharan Kripa kori bare tabe Prabhura hoilaman. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya denounced himself as an offender and took shelter of the Lord desired to show him mercy. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya denounced himself as an offender and took shelter of the Lord desired to show him mercy. Nijarupa Prabhutare Banila Darshan Chatarbhuja Rupa Prabhu Hoila Lukaya Nijarupa Prabhutare Koraila Darshan Chatarbhuja Rupa Prabhu Hoila Takan. To show him mercy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu allowed him to see his Vishnu form. Thus he immediately assumed 4 hands. Dekaila Tare Age Chatarbhuja Rup Pache Shama Vamshi Mukha Swakiya Swarup. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first showed him the 4-handed form and then appeared before him in his original form of Krishna, with a blackish complexion and a flute to his lips. Deke Sarvabhauma Dandavat Kore Padi Puna Ute Stute Kore Dui Kora Judi. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya saw the form of Lord Krishna manifested in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he immediately fell down flat to offer him obeisances. Thus he stood up. Then he stood up and with folded hands began to offer prayers. Prabhura Kripayatara Swarila Sabtatva Nama Prema Dana Adi Varnena Mahatva. By the mercy of the Lord, all truths were revealed to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he could understand the importance of chanting the holy name and distributing love of Godhead everywhere. Tomorrow we'll continue.
¿Cómo es que Bhattacharya, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, siendo el sacerdote del Señor Jagannath con realización de Vigraha, de la forma del Señor, tenía todo ese fundamento impersonalista?
How did, let's say in English, how is it that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya,
having the Vigraha realization of Jagannath, the Lord Jagannath, being the prayers of the Jagannath, could have also his impersonalism concept of
well, he was active in the temple of Lord Jagannath, but like many persons, they don't know that the deity is actually the divine form of the Lord. They think the Lord has manifested himself in material elements. Even in that respect, there is some impersonalism present in the consideration of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya before he met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so many persons, they were, even the followers of Shankaracharya, many of them worship the deity form of the Lord. But their vision of the deity, they don't see the deity form as being non-different from the Lord. They think the Lord has manifested himself in material elements, like a transformation, maybe the mode of goodness or something like that. Anyway, tomorrow I'll continue. It's not that everyone who worships a deity is a personalist. Many people worship deities who are also impersonalists. The impersonalists worship 5 different forms of the Lord. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jaravaya Nama Jaravaya Maravaya Keshavaya Nama Gopa Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Maranamon Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Garadana Shiva Sari Gora Bhaktivedanta Sharupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna Sri Jiva Gopala Bhattadasa Raguna H.I. Gosai Kori Charana Banan Jao Ete Vignana Shabista Puran H.I. Gosai Jar Mui Tarana Dasavar Pada Renu Mora Panchagar Tare Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Janame More Abhilas H.I. Gosai Shabe Braje Koilabas Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pare Majai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriya Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Narathamuda Shri Jai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo.
Jai Gora Hari Bo,
Jai Saparikara Shri Shri Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Juki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Statara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Tilak Niraya Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Statara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Nirmamacharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Statara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Statara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Rakakshidhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivedanta Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Bharga Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Raghunath Shadgo Swami Prabhu Ki Jai. Premsigo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vishvavarenya Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupad Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Kusham Ashram Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Ki Jai. Saparshada Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Saparshada Sriman Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Shri Koladvip Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Soquel Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Sevashram Ki Jai. Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopi Govardhan Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo Ki Jai. Shri Purushottam Madam Ki Jai. Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Jo Ki Jai. Bhakti Vigna Vinashaya Shri Nrsingadev Ki Jai. Bhakta Prabhara Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. All the assembled devotees Ki Jai. Sripad Bhakti Raman Mata Maharaj Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Srila